Hello and welcome to the Cold Coffee Club, a podcast brought to you by Houston Moms. We're here to give you a little bit of that mom-to-mom connection, fun, and conversation amidst all the chaos. Join us as we take a break from doing all the things and explore the wide spectrum of this crazy motherhood role. We'll interview fun guests, talk about cool grown-up topics, laugh, share, and grow together. So go ahead, reheat that coffee, and put your feet up. Here we go.
Hi, welcome to a very special episode of the Cold Coffee Club, where we, for our very first time, are recording in the same room.
This is a milestone.
It's a big milestone. And it's even more special because we have a very special guest with us today. We are joined by Mary Engle, who is a counselor. And we are so thankful to have you with us today, Mary. So give us a little bit of just kind of who you are. Tell us about your name.
You bet. Well, so I like to tell people I'm Mary Engle, and they'll always say, that name sounds so familiar. And I'm like, did you grow up watching Little House on the Prairie?
That's right.
It's always my segue. The adults get that, the kids don't. But I did education for 28 years. Okay. So I started out as a classroom teacher, and I'll never forget, one of the school counselors came up to me and she's like, you have such a heart for kids. Have you ever thought about being a counselor? And so that kind of began my journey of going that route. So I was in the classroom for 11 years and did elementary and middle school. And then I did school counseling for 12 years as elementary and middle school. And so I left education back in 2016, was doing my practice after school. I look back on that and I'm like, how did I do that? But, I did that from 2005 to 2016, and then started like this 100% my passion starting in 2016. And my thought had always been that, you know, woundedness happens in the home, so why not healing happen in the home? Mm-hmm. So that was always my desire, to have a practice in a home. And so I've really been blessed to be in this beautiful home in Old Town Katy, or downtown Katy, because I know some people don't like to call it Old Town Katy. And so I just love it to have this precious place for people to come and just unpack everything, and for me to walk that journey with them. And one of the areas that I also chose to go down, I've done lots of training in play therapy, lots of training, was even at one point pursuing that certification. And then my heart just landed on this whole idea of Emdr, which stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And so I really focus on the brain. And I really focus on that part of the brain where we get stuck in that fight, flight, or freeze mode. And that's actually where I encourage my parents to land on, to help them strengthen their already good enough parenting, but to make it even stronger parenting. And so I'm constantly looking at things, as you'll see in here as we begin to dive in. I'm going to that place. You know, a lot of people want to start from the top, where they just want to talk about it and try and reason it. So that's top down, but I'm a bottom up woman. So yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
So tell me some of the things, like if a parent comes to you, or, you know, I know you have lots of kiddos that come through here, but what are some of the things that kids come to you to help process through, or maybe they're fighting through, or is it kids that are just going through trauma, or is it kids that are going through anxiety? Yeah. Kind of, what are some of the things that you help kiddos with? What are some things that you do here?
I would say probably the biggest thing that I see with almost everybody, and especially, of course, right now with us coming out of hopefully the tail end of the pandemic, but it's been a lot of anxiety and a lot of isolation. And you know, we were made for relationship. And so that when we're not getting those relational needs met, ooh, boy, does that jack that up. And I also have, it just kind of, I don't know how it happened, but I can identify those pretty highly intelligent kids pretty fast from all my education years. And so I really love working with those GT minded kind of kiddos and just their way of thinking, and just to help them learn balance and being able to stay developmentally appropriate. You know, so many kiddos, it's like they're like little adults, and we got to help them remember they're still in their childhood. And I also work a lot with divorce situations, whether it's they're going through it or they've been through it. That's a whole nother ball of wax, because there's got to be good boundaries set in there when you're dealing with two different families now that used to be one. So there's, you know, a lot of grief that goes through that. I work a lot with kiddos that struggle with ADHD and just the shame that comes with that, the low self-esteem, the social rejection. And believe it or not, when we say trauma, most people don't realize there's little T's and they're big T's. For my professionals that are trained in EMDR, they totally get what I'm talking about. And that's one of the other things that I really try and educate my families on. We all suffer from trauma. And so what can happen, and I'll just take that ADHD child, for instance, that ADHD child, because of their impulsivity, and, you know, kids can they cannot want to be around that. So that can create a lot of social rejection. Well, when a child has been socially rejected over and over, those are little T's. It creates a feeling of trauma. And what trauma does is it's like it splits the brain in half. But the great thing is about the brain is that we can heal it, and we can nurture it, and we can retrain it. It's like a muscle, we can retrain it. And so that's what I love helping my families with, is to know how to navigate that.
And you're saying there's like a difference between like a big T with, you know,
Yes.
I think a lot of times people think trauma and you're like, oh, there was a fire,
Right.
you know, or something really,
Horrible.
something graphic, you know,
Horrible.
horrible.
Or yes.
And not that we don't want to, but I
Yes.
think that there's not enough emphasis placed on what kids experience in these little T's. And to that point, I'd love for you to spend a little bit of time helping us kind of understand kind of when it comes to those little T's, that things that maybe to an adult we might brush off as this is not that, you know, if your favorite toy breaks or you lose your whatever, you know, something very, we might go, this is fine, this is not a big deal. Can you spend a little bit of time kind of encouraging us as parents, helping us understand the importance of validating our children?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's my new favorite word, is validation. First, I want you to think of your children, and even with coworkers, with any family members, anything, just think of the human soul like a glacier. And so we respond from the shoulders up. But what's really happening is what's going on underneath.
Okay.
And that's where the focus needs to be. Okay. So this is where validation comes in. So I encourage my parents. I have a whole little psychoeducation session that I do with the child and the parent. And I go over the different parts of the brain, the right brain that I call the feeling brain, the left brain that I call the thinking brain, the front forehead brain that I call the most mature brain. And then of course that fight, flight, and freeze happens back there in that brainstem. And so what I share with the parent, how we can help co-regulate with our kiddos when stuff is going on and big hard feelings are coming up, is to validate. It's first step. And there's a great book out there written by two therapists here in Houston. It's called The Power of Validation. And you know, most of us confuse validation. We think we're doing that, and what we're doing is praising or encouraging. Okay. And it's not that. And I also, where my parents also get hung up with validation, is that they think by doing that they're telling the child that it's okay with whatever behavior it is that they've demonstrated. And so I truly, I coach my parents. I've got, we'll even sit in here and do it together, even with the child, with the situation. And what it sounds like is this. I get it. It's hard for you when your sister won't play with you. It makes sense that you're feeling these big feelings. I get it. Mm-hmm. And by doing that, immediately what you've done, it's almost like these little laser beams have gone from your eyes to their eyes of like, I get it. You're not saying that it's right that they've like thrown themselves on the ground and kicked and screamed or punched a pillow or a door or, screamed. There's nowhere in there that you're like saying, good job, do that again.
We love that.
Yeah. Let me get the phone out so I can record this. This will make it great TikTok. Bring it on. No, we're like saying, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay. I get it. I get it. What a lot of my parents like to say is, oh, I went through that when I was your age. It's no big deal, whatever. No. Worst thing you can say to a child. I even tell my parents of teenagers, and I know, are you there yet, Ashley? No. Okay. That's a whole
We're heading there.
Yes.
It's coming. I feel it.
Yeah. So like I tell my parents, they want to tell their kids that they went through peer pressure and experienced the drug culture and all that stuff when they were their age. And I let them know there is no way what we went through when we were that age that even comes close to what these teens go through.
Oh yeah. It's so different.
And so that is not helpful at all. Mm-hmm. So again, going back to that validation, even with a teenager, I get it. That's really hard for you when you feel left out. Or that's really hard for you when you're tempted with lying to me or doing something because you want to go hang out with your friends. I get that. Okay. So that's the validation. That's what it looks like. The next piece to let them kind of help that child regroup is to distract the brain, because the right brain and the left brain don't touch. There's this membrane, and I'm not a big O scientist, so I'm not even going to throw out all those big fancy names, because who even wants to take the time to try and remember them? Right. I call it Switzerland. It's like that neutral place. Yeah. So it's where we do a distraction. Yeah. And it can be as simple as, come on, let's go for a walk, or let's like show me your favorite dance, or let's pretend we're doing a TikTok for just a minute, just to give your brain a break. Right. And so then you do that. And I also recently learned that the face has 42 muscles that are connected to the nervous system. Yeah. And the face can't lie. And so I can do it in here. I can see when there's been a shift, where I can see that the face has started to relax, the eyes are lighting up a little bit, where they're able to move through some of the hard feelings. Mm-hmm. And I encourage my parents, you know your child. Mm-hmm. I mean, you gave birth to that baby. You know that child better than anybody. You carried it for 9 months and then some. Mm-hmm. And so you can tell when they're kind of. So then at that moment is when you go from mom to teacher, and you teach the self-talk. You teach like the right brain, the left brain is the one that kind of talks you need both sides to be able to be in your most mature brain. So that's where the left side talks to the right side, doing that self-talk of like, it's like, this is okay. I'm feeling this feeling. It's not going to last forever. It makes sense. I feel this way. Mm-hmm. Let me try some breaths. Let me go tell my mom how I'm feeling before I explode. Mm-hmm. You just model all of that with them. And then you get some good dialogue, and 9 times out of 10, they're also going to really tell you what the heart issue is at that moment when they can finally calm down to a place where they can really focus on those heart issues.
Right. Oh, wow, that's
Does that
incredible.
make sense?
That does make sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Very
So-
important.
So, and Jenny and I both have multiple children,
Uh-huh.
and I'm a newly single mom.
Okay.
So, you know, we're dealing with
Yeah.
divorce stuff and everything. And
Yes.
I'm realizing even more so now how different each one of them truly is.
Yeah.
And how do parents of multiple kids kind of figure out how to tailor how they approach each child differently and like meet their needs? Like, how do you figure that out?
Yeah, boy. And it's so tough too, Ashley. You know, being a single mom, it's like now it's you don't have a partner to bounce things off of. And so that's where I love platforms like this, where you all can help each other bounce off of things. And of course, the important role of family and friends, and that just giving you that support. So that's just my side comment to you, to like embrace that and go with it, and your kids are going to come out okay. And
She's
so
very good.
yeah, I bet she is. I bet she is.
Thank you.
But so going back to that whole validation and that whole from the bottom up, so that fight, flight, or freeze. There's in the what we call the bottom up approach to doing counseling and parenting. One of the things that I would really encourage parents to do is to really, there's some great parenting books out on that. And what I would encourage them to do, and I got this from Dan Siegel's book on, oh my gosh, the whole child brain.
Mhm.
And, but it's to have that mindset of the me plus the we equals mind sight. And so that validation helps with the me. I am me, I'm special, what I'm feeling is okay. And then as a family, you always go from we are a we are a team. And this is, and so it's not just, yes, individual needs are important. And we also have to like survive and think in the we. Because again, remember, we were made for relationship. And in that relationship is where we learn. And even as a baby, we learn to pick up on cues of like what sadness looks like, what happy looks like, what fun looks like. And I want to just encourage families to continue that sense of fun, because there's so much growth in that. Okay. So let's take it back to how do you do it when there's sibling stuff? Teaching empathy is huge. And, you know, I heard some powerful stuff. I do lots of trainings. I'm kind of a training nerd. And it was, excuse me, it was so powerful. The therapist shared that empathy should be practiced in the home because it requires a lot of energy. It can suck us dry. Sympathy practice is practiced outside of the home. So empathy is when we allow ourselves to walk in the shoes of another person. So I was even reading recently about this really cool idea, like when there's some sibling rivalry of where like you take a picture and you know, blow it up to, you know, like 8.5 by 11 kind of paper. And you make a mask out of a picture of the other sibling, cut out the eyes and the mouth and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, y'all can try it and report back to your people and let them know. I'll be doing it in here because I was like, oh, I want to try that so bad. But then you have like a private moment, or you can maybe try it with the other sibling around and even do it with each one of them, where you have them then step in, put that face on of the sibling that they're fighting with.
Oh, wow.
and have them like, what do you think was like going on underneath? Did you notice anything about like how they were looking? Like, yeah, I know. Isn't that cool? I just love, there's so much information out there to just help parents be so much. You know, our parents had Dr. What was his name? Or my parents had Dr. Spock. I mean, like we've come so far from Dr. Spock. So yeah, but just to have them really to learn to look at that face and tell them there's 42 muscles. We don't lie. What's going on in there? Like, what do you see in their face? What do you think they're thinking on the inside? And just have that heart to heart. I'll do that in here with my kiddos when they're blowing up about something. I gotta step back and remind myself I'm the adult and like, you know, take a few breaths and just remember I'm the adult, and to know that there's something going on underneath, and to just ask some open-ended questions. And if I think I know something, but I'm not sure, I always just ask, tell me more about that. And it's like it opens up another layer where they can tell me, and every time I say that, like, tell me more about that. And it just, they can tell more about it. And so y'all, it's a lot of coaching to help your kids navigate that. But I think the end result, the payoff is going to be so much better for the time that you put in the front end, and to just have that whole mind sight of the me plus the we equals mind sight. And of course, I would encourage anybody that wants to know more about that, you know, chapter 6 and the whole brain child is all about that me plus we equals mind sight. And it does. It's good stuff. Along with, I've got other books that are good too. If we have time, I can share them with you.
Well, we can put all of that in our show notes. We can
Absolutely.
definitely put all of those books you mentioned.
Yes,
We can
yes.
put all those in there. And I think
Yes.
it's good to, I love like the joining together of validating the child and making them feel, you know, their thoughts are heard, but then also teaching me lifelong lesson of empathy.
Yes.
I think kids are naturally going to lean towards selfishness. Just, I think it's just, you're like, well, that's mine and I want that.
You bet.
And just starting to teach them the thought process of like, how do you feel? What do you think that makes them feel when you do that? You know, I think we as adults assume that comes naturally, but it doesn't. And I constantly have to say to my kids, even not only towards each other, but even to me, you know, when they say, well, I didn't want that, you know, after I've given them a gift or something, I'll later go, I want you to realize, I know you didn't mean it like that, but that actually hurt mommy's feelings when you said that. Even if I didn't really, but I just want them to know that down the road, you cannot receive a gift like that. You know, we need to think of others and, you know, and just preparing them for social situations like that like there are things that they can say that might come across as hurtful when it's not in their intention to be hurtful, but it can be. It's just explaining like how others might receive things that they say, you know.
And you know, y'all, there's even like you know, one thing I do is I use a dog in my counseling practice. And so like, especially when the child is around Liberty for the first time, I'll like have them kind of just observe things about her and if they're coming on too strong, what she's doing. And of course, Jenny, I know y'all have precious little Rocky at home now.
Yes.
And so that's even a great way to like get them to just even practice the empathy there with the pets at home, and what do they notice is happening, and how the dog is responding. And again, just to help, like being observant is so important with the factor of empathy.
Right. How does the dog react when you're if you're
Right.
chasing the dog? Does the dog look like he's having a good time?
Right,
Yes.
or
Or
what's
does
the
the
dog
dog
put
look
his
panicked?
ears or his,
Oh yeah.
or his tail or his head. I mean, like to just look at all of that. And then it's just, y'all, I like to tell my parents, y'all are not only a parent, but you're a teacher, you're a coach. I mean, y'all carry it all.
Oh,
So
yes.
yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I mean,
You're
I feel like I'm
welcome.
gonna be like chewing on this all day.
Mhm.
I know
I
that.
learned so much already.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know, it's exciting.
There's so many different ways to help our kids, and I thank you for doing what you do
You bet.
and helping kiddos the way you help them. And I know that I can't wait to share this with all Houston moms. So
Awesome.
moms, if you're listening, we are putting everything in the show notes for you. And thank you again, Mary. And we will check with y'all. We'll have a new episode for you next week. So
Yes.
thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
You've been listening to the Cold Coffee Club, brought to you by Houston Moms. We wish you a fabulous week with your families and look forward to sharing many more cups of cold coffee with you.